Good morning. This webinar offers closed captioning. To enable closed captioning, click on the live transcript button on the bottom of your screen and choose your preferred method. Welcome to the Chicago Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection webinar. Please note any website or email that I mention will be posted in the chat box. For those seeking business licensing assistance, you can visit the Small Business Center at City Hall or call 312-74-GO-BIZ. Also, business licenses can be applied for or renewed online at chicagobusinessdirect.org. If you are part of the BACP Entrepreneur Certificate Program, you can get credit for joining this webinar by sending an email to bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org. If you want to learn more about the program, please visit chicago.gov/businesseducation. Also, this webinar is being recorded and will be available at youtube.com/ChicagoBACP. I will post the mentioned information in the chat box. We encourage attendees to ask questions. Please use the chat box to send your questions. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Please note that the views, information, and opinions expressed during this webinar are solely those of the presenter and do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of the Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection or the City of Chicago. Today's webinar is Everything You Need to Know About Business Insurance, presented by Sandra Cavoto at Farmers Insurance. Sandra?
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I always enjoy doing these webinars because it's exciting to hear new businesses and new entrepreneurs coming on board and just creating opportunities for jobs for people in our city. And I just really enjoy doing it. So today's session is everything you need to know about business insurance. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. So my name is Sandra Cavoto. I am a resident of Chicago, born and raised here. I have 3 offices in the Chicagoland area: Burr Ridge, downtown, and near Midway Airport. I also have business in 9 other states. We're a relatively large agency. We have over 7,000 policies, and we've been in business for 25 years. It's my 25th year anniversary. So I want you to consider me as a resource for you for things that you need about insurance and financial services. Some of the things as a business owner, you're going to wear a lot of hats, and insurance, financial services, benefits, all things like that are going to be part of your world that you're going to live in. And I'm here to help you. So we specialize in commercial insurance, wealth planning, retirement, things like that, all surrounding that business owner. So with some really basic information about business insurance, just to help build a foundation for you for when you're going to ask questions and interview right insurance agent to help you with the products that are available. So what is business insurance, right? So business insurance is a tool that business owners use to transfer risk. That's all insurance is you're transferring risk from yourself to an insurance company. And in exchange for a premium, we take on those large risks. So some of the most common risk perils that we insure against is lightning. People can get sick off of a product that you have. So legal liability, serious accidents, death of a key employee. These are all aspects of business insurance. But what most people hear about is just, a basic liability policy, but there are so many more factors and facets to the different business policies that we offer. So I get a question asked all the time is, when do I need to get my business insurance? So there's a few bullet points that you're going to need to secure insurance. So whenever you make a business decision, you're going to think about this conversation we're going to have about what is the type of insurance that I need for my specific business. Whenever you enter into a lease agreement, your even a standard lease for Illinois always has a section for insurance. Know that your insurance lease agreements can be negotiated. So make sure that you have an attorney read over your lease and negotiate what things that may or may not pertain to you or in excess of what you feel you want to pay for. Always read those conditions, especially of the lease requirements. Work compensation is a law in the state of Illinois. There's huge penalties for not complying with the workers' comp laws, but we're going to go into detail as to when you would need workers' comp policy. So, and then the last thing about when do I go into business, or so let's say you're working from home and you have there's no lease agreement, you're an at-home business. Any you engage with a consumer or an end user, you're going to need insurance. So you're a consultant, or you're selling Avon, things like that. You're engaging with a customer and an end user, you're going to need insurance. So just keep that in mind. And why do you need business insurance? So the why is that it transfers the risk. We're all in business, including myself. I can only support so much. I can only self-insure so much. And then a catastrophe that could happen, or a large lawsuit that could happen, may put me out of business. So it protects my livelihood and the safety of my family, and it protects my business from making sure that I don't lose profits. I don't go through a bankruptcy. It just takes the uncertainty out of the picture, and it allows me to focus on what I do best, is selling my product. It also, premiums for most types of insurance are tax deductible. So you'll want to work with an accountant on being able to write these premiums off against your revenue. So yes, of course, they're tax deductible. The IRS code, though, it does say that business, in order to have a tax deduction, and I'm not a tax accountant, so this is just what I know, it has to be in ordinary and common to be acceptable for my business. So if I'm buying a policy that has unrelated to my business and no value to the business, you won't be able to deduct it. So you're not going to be able to deduct it if it doesn't pertain to your business necessities. So if it's considered a necessary and ordinary expense, you should be able to take that deduction. So here are some of the products to consider. And so there's a lot more than this, but these are the most common products that we offer for certain businesses. So you have your business auto, you have business life insurance, you have partnership life insurance, general liability, professional liability, cyber, property, work comp. I have bullet points on these. We're going to talk about all of these, but you can see that there's a wide range of products that many of you not even know, never even seen before. What do these coverages mean? So I want you to take some good notes on these, because when you do go interview an insurance representative, you're going to need to ask these questions, and that will determine if that commercial agent is really a specialist. Okay, so this is a common question. Why do I need business auto? What's the difference between business and personal auto? I thought as long as I have insurance, I'm covered. Well, there's a lot of exclusions on a personal auto policy. So business auto coverage for protection. It's different from personal insurance because it has different language in there. So even if you own your vehicle personally, but you use it to deliver products, or you go from one site to another, you may need a commercial auto policy. So you got to remember that there's some language, specifically language differences in exclusions on a personal auto policy that may exclude delivery, that may not cover things that are in the vehicle while you're driving it for work. So you want to make sure you explain what your business operation is to who's going to insure that vehicle, and know that there is a difference. Now, which one is more expensive? Which one is cheaper? The commercial auto policy tends to be more expensive because there are less exclusions and there's more coverage. So less exclusions, more coverage typically means a higher premium point. But remember, it's a tax deduction then, right? If it's used for business, then that becomes ordinary necessary, and that premium will get a tax deduction versus the personal auto may not. So you got to remember that, think of the bigger picture. Don't think of cost, think of coverage and protection. There's also a key coverage that you'll see on most insurance requirements, most certificates of insurance, especially the city of Chicago. If you're doing an event for the city of Chicago, they'll want auto liability coverage, which extends to hired and non-owned auto. So you'll want to make sure that that checks that box and it's only sold on a commercial auto policy. Business life insurance, it's also known as key life insurance. Different from personal insurance, we still underwrite the same way, but different from a personal policy in that a commercial business life policy can be used as an asset on your business, on your balance sheet. And what that means is that if you were to try to get a loan for your business, and maybe you're short a little bit of something on that balance sheet, the underwriter may ask you for collateral, and they can use life insurance oftentimes for collateralizing your loan in order to get a business loan. So it's a tool. So you want to be able to have it handy so that when that opportunity arises and you have a policy earmarked for business, then that can be easily transferred to the bank, and maybe you'll get approved versus not approved. It's not a 100% foolproof that you won't get approved. You still need to go through all the other requirements of getting a loan, but this can be very helpful to business owners if they have it. Always better to have it than not to have it. Business life insurance can also be a tool for retaining key employees. You can use cash value as what they call golden handcuffs, and you could then build them a retirement portfolio inside a life insurance contract that allows them to build cash value on a tax favorable basis, and they can take that with them at retirement. So again, just other benefits that we're touching upon, just so you make some notes on it, and then we can have a conversation later about specific situations. The main purpose of life insurance is it provides liquidity. So if something happens to the business owner, there may be debt, there might be loans, you've got bills to pay, still employees that need to get paid. So it is instant cash. So you can't save enough, but you can buy enough life insurance. So remember that it's liquidity for your heirs, for those that are going to be left figuring out how you want your business to pass along. There's also called stockholder life insurance. You can create it through a buy-sell agreement if there's multiple business owners, and you can arrange it where you can sell it as a stock provision, and life insurance can become part of that whole big picture. So there's a lot of aspects of key life insurance. The partnership life insurance is really important. Obviously, if you are working together with somebody else in your business, maybe you're the cash partner, but the other one is going to be the sweat of the they're going to be working inside the business, and maybe you're just providing cash to the business. But if something happens prematurely to one of those business owners, the buy-sell agreement will allow you through life insurance to pay off the spouse or the heirs of the other partner, and it'll allow you to become 100% owner of that business through life insurance. So for example, if you go into business, let's say two brothers go into business, they have a buy-sell agreement, and the one brother passes away, they became automatic partners with that brother's spouse or that brother's family or whoever that brother leaves his estate to. And maybe that spouse of that brother isn't knowledgeable enough in your business, but now they have a 50% say in how to run your business. So wouldn't it be better to just pay that partner off with the life insurance, and then that buy-sell agreement would determine that you become that sole owner of that operation, and then you can continue and operate your business without blinking an eye. So otherwise you become partners with somebody that maybe you didn't set up to do, and maybe that may change your mind about selling your business or making decisions that you weren't ready to make. So really important key aspect and very foundational when you're working on what kind of insurance do I need? I'm opening up a business. Okay, so here's the most common term in most leases. Obviously, it'll say you need general liability. Okay, what's general liability? So some of the coverages that we cover under a general liability policy means your slip and falls. Somebody visits your business and they get hurt. So now they've got some medical attention. They didn't go to work for a few days. Who's going to cover these expenses? So that would be general liability. It covers contractual, advertising injury, personal injury, things like that, where let's say you have a business and you're marketing and you're producing an ad for the newspaper, but you wrongfully put some information in that ad that creates somebody to sue you. So for whatever that reason is, that liability, that lawsuit against your business because you said something in writing or you advertised something that was false or somebody accused you of it, irregardless of accuracy or not, that lawsuit needs to be addressed. So your general liability will provide the legal means to pay and represent you during that situation. Product liability versus premises liability. Product liability is strictly for businesses that produce a product, whether you're the manufacturer or whether you're just the manufacturer's rep. If you label your product with your information, even though you hired somebody to manufacture it, you're an Avon rep, you're, things like that, where you're selling products. That product liability specifically, let's say somebody put a product on their face, they bought some cream from you that you labeled, and maybe the label didn't have a disclosure or disclaimer on it, and now there's some injury to that person. That's product liability. Versus premise liability is how that slip and fall works. So that's a different category, all under the general liability umbrella. Typical benefits are $1 million. They start at $1 million, although you can buy lower. Most vendors will want to see at least $1 million of coverage in each of those categories. Definitely read your lease requirement, because sometimes you'll see 4 million, sometimes you'll see 2 million requirement. Those are again negotiable, but most standard leases and in standard wording from vendors like the city of Chicago, you'll see $1 million lease requirement in that general liability category. Additional insured. This is extremely important. Whether you're a business owner or even an individual, if you're entering into a contract with somebody to do work for you, you're going to want, if you're the vendor, you're going to want to be named as an additional insured. If you're the customer, you're going to want to request that you are listed on their policy as an additional insured. What does that do for you? So if you're listed as an additional insured, just that there's on the contract of the insurance policy, there's the named insured, the person that we're protecting, and then there's additional insured. So it could be a mortgage company, it could be maybe you're renting a park and the park wants to be listed as additional insured. So there's some kind of agreement and arrangement that you're entering into this agreement, and you act as whoever's listed as the additional insured acts as the named insured. So you have the same benefits as the named insured. So for example, if the city of Chicago has the Taste of Chicago, their insurance requirements state that you need to name the city of Chicago, all their affiliates, as an additional insured. So that protects the city. If somebody got sick on the food that they were serving and the city gets sued because they were at Grant Park, they were using the city's space, the city has that protection under the customer's policy. So that's why you want to be named as an additional insured. It gives that extra layer of protection. So when you, as the customer, as the vendor, you want to exchange in that agreement, you want to make sure that your name is properly listed on that other person's policy. So a typical exchange of insurance are contractors. So if you hire out a contractor to work on your home, you not only want to see that they have insurance, you want to be listed as an additional insured. So if they cause damage to your property, you have recourse. And also that if let's say their insurance doesn't get paid, they don't pay you the premium, when you're listed as an additional insured, you also receive notifications like that to make sure the insurance stays active during the time that you need that to be active. So it's really important to button that up, especially if you're using independent contractors where you think that you're not responsible for them because they're an independent contractor. Not quite the case. You need to make sure that coverage is listed properly as an additional insured, and it protects obviously one entity from the other against that negligence that may arise. Professional liability. So professional liability, different from general liability, are for operations like where you offer a service. So like my insurance practice, I have professional liability for the type of work that I do. I'm giving advice. I may forget to add a coverage on a policy after I've talked to somebody. It's also called errors and omissions. So your professional liability protects the business owner if they're providing services and they omit something. Your accountant may have forgotten to file your tax return. things like that. They make an error on your tax return. So professionals need professional liability. Doctors, their malpractice insurance is a part of professional liability. So it provides coverage for the person when doing the operation of, during the operation of their business, whether it's advice, whether they make a mistake, whether they hurt somebody in the course of medical practice, malpractice. So it covers negligence. If I forgot to add something on your policy and then you have a claim, and I forgot to do it, that who's going to pay that claim? Not the insurance company. They're going to go after the representative that did not do their work. They made an error. And that's why everybody needs to have insurance to protect against that type of business. So not everybody needs professional liability. If I'm a landscaper, I don't need professional liability. I also need general liability. So different types of products are needed for different types of services. Don't forget to write questions, because this is the fun part, is answering the questions for people. Crime insurance. Crime covers employees in your office against misuse of money, customers' money. But it's also called a fidelity. So it's an employer to employee benefit. If your employee steals from you, that's covered under crime. You also may see it on a lease requirement that they need fidelity coverage, or somebody may ask you for fidelity insurance that protects against the theft or from employee to employer. And I think all of these slides are going to be available for you, and it's also going to be recorded. So just so you know, if I'm going faster than we should. On the cyber liability. So cyber has become more prominent over the last decade or so. People are getting sophisticated on hacking. There's just a lot going on. Even hospitals are getting hacked. They're claiming hacking. Home Depot got hacked. So no matter how much antivirus software you have and firewalls that you have, sophisticated hackers can access your confidential information. And what happens if your computer gets compromised and now your customer just got their identity stolen? There's bills that arose from that. Their life is upside down. So if you have cyber liability on your policy, then that would cover the defense costs and representing you for that situation that just happened. So because it's become more common, cyber liability may or may not be standard on a policy. The good policies, like a farmer's policy, may have this built into your program, a little bit of benefit for it, $50,000 of coverage may have it. But other policies, they're a la carte. So you have to request that, you have to ask for it. Do you carry data on your computer system that allows, that somebody could take? And most of the answer is going to be yes. You probably have, if you're running a business, you probably have to type invoices, get people's names, addresses. You're creating this business information, and data is stored on your laptop. So it's really a good idea to have cyber coverage on your policy. Property coverage. So property coverage protects the physical business coverages that are inside your property. So your equipment, your monitors, your laptops inside the office, desks, furniture. Maybe you have equipment that you are using for your restaurant. Those kind of things are going to be stored inside your facility. That's all considered property. So how much personal property do you need? You have to go through them. You'll have an inventory. We'll go through questionnaires to figure out, if there were a claim, how much do you want your insurance company to write you a check for? If there was a fire, how much money do you need to rebuild your inside of your facility? Even if you're just a tenant of a building, you don't own the building, but all of these things inside that building are your responsibility. They're your assets. So you need to worry about protecting that contents coverage within your business operation. People ask, what are things that are covered against? Does flood cover? What if I have a flood? Is that covered? Will my property be replaced? So the answer is not really on your general liability. It doesn't come standard. If you have a true flood and you're in a flood zone, the only way to get your personal property covered for a specific flood would be to have flood insurance. It's pretty costly to have it. In the city of Chicago, we are not, our flood zone is a flood zone X. So that means that you're not required by law to carry it. Your lender won't require you to carry it, but you can buy it still. Just because the city doesn't require it doesn't mean you can't have it. So if you're on the first floor and you're worried about it, otherwise the other option would be to maybe get some backup of sewer coverage, which means if the water comes up through the sewer system and it backs up into your drains of your ground level or your basement level, water backup can cause a lot of damage. Water can cause a lot of damage. So if you don't have that coverage and you filed a claim, it wouldn't be covered under your property coverage. Just because you have property coverage, now you have to cover the perils against the damage to the property. So that means you need to add all these coverages on your policy to make sure, if it's a concern for you, to make sure you address that. Inside property insurance, there's what's called business interruption, also known as business income. So what happens if there's a fire you're a tenant in a building and there's a fire in your property? How are you going to pay your bills? The business is now shut down. You have to relocate. You have to buy new merchandise. You have to get business started. That time period that your business shuts down because of a covered claim means that we, as the insurance company, will support you during this time where you have no revenue coming in. You have no inventory to sell. So that business interruption is really an important coverage to have, because it makes sure that we keep you moving, paying your employees, relocating you, finding you a new space, temporarily covering your bills. There's a period of time that insurance companies will cover for, sometimes 6 months, sometimes a year, sometimes it's 18 months of coverage. So you want to make sure you have a very good policy under business interruption that covers you during that time, that gap in time where a claim happens and you have no revenue coming in and you have no merchandise to sell. We're still keeping your business going. Otherwise, if you don't have it, that could be a bankruptcy. You can just be, you're gonna have to close down if you have no funds to to rebuild that power, rebuild your location. Small business workers comp, I mentioned it earlier in the session that it is required by law. It covers losses against injuries that your employee has. So it's another employee to employer benefit, regardless of how the injuries happen or who is at fault. If they get hurt on the job, you are responsible for their medical bills. You are responsible for their wages. So if they get hurt while they're at work, even if you told them don't climb the ladder and they fall off the ladder, that's an injury that happened at work. So it's really important to make sure, because the laws are very strict in Illinois about carrying workers' comp. There are some exceptions to the rule on who needs it and who doesn't need it, but just keep in mind that everybody, if you enter into a contract with somebody, whether it's a volunteer, an independent contractor, a niece that's just helping you out, that triggers workers' compensation if they get hurt. So it also covers third-party lawsuits. So let's say the Pepsi man is delivering soda to your facility, and they get hurt on your property because you asked them to move something for you. That third party, he's not your employee directly, but he's on your property and he's now doing something for you in that business relation. That would be considered a third party potential claim. That Pepsi vendor may be covered under the Pepsi distributor, may be covered under his employer, but you also may have some liability against that too. Hey, help me move this over here, and then they get hurt. So it also covers that. So you don't have to add that onto a workers' comp policy. It's built into the contract that protects those kind of scenarios. This is the website, super important. This will give you clear detail of when do I need the workers' comp. I have independent contractors. It's just me and my wife on the policy, that are in the business. It'll go through who needs workers' comp and when are you considered exempt from it. So that's an important website. There's also a hotline. I think there is a phone number. Oh no, I don't have it saved. Maybe it's on the bottom. No, I don't have it saved. But once you go to the website, there's a phone number that you can also call, and they're very helpful. I do know that the fines against not carrying workers' comp, if you are a business that requires it, it comes out to about $500 a day. And the state of Illinois can actually go back and fine you from when you opened up your business. So it's like $250,000 a year that they could fine you if you are caught without having the right workers' compensation policy. Now, are there work comp police? No, but there are whistleblowers inside your facility. So your employee may find out you don't have workers' comp, or they may report you. So the money that the state of Illinois collects for people that don't have, for businesses that don't carry workers' comp, all those fines go into a fund, and that fund supports injured employees. So it's an injured employee fund, and it helps pay some bills that for customers that didn't get, employees that didn't get compensated properly during especially them could take years to sue somebody. So, but you are personally responsible. This was interesting because, a lot of business owners will open up a corporation, an LLC, to protect their assets, S corporation to shelter the liability. So if I get sued, I can't lose my house if I'm a corporation. But under the work comp law of our state, it doesn't protect us. So that means we are personally liable for that employee. I can't file bankruptcy under my business and get hide away from that workers' comp injury. It will follow you everywhere. And workers' compensation isn't necessarily expensive unless your type of business is a roofer, where roofers have a very high rate because of the injuries of employees, clearly, versus an office employee, maybe a few $100s a year. So don't be afraid to ask the questions, and you can become insurance poor, right? You can, there's insurance for everything. And I recognize the fact that you're opening a business, and I always advise more insurance is better than less insurance. But a lot of these conversations that we have, we talk about it, and then we build the program, maybe not on day one, but maybe these are things that you budget for. So that way, when you survive year 2 and 3 in your business and you beat the odds, and you're going to be a business owner for a very long time, you make sure you remind yourself that your business insurance need to grow and change with you. As your business and operations expand, you have more revenue, you have more employees. Don't forget your insurance is only as big as what you started it with. So you have to have these conversations frequently with your insurance advisor to make sure we're not missing something during the growth of your business from one year to another. So, insist on annual reviews because your business needs may have changed. Okay. EPLI, another important coverage to have that nobody really talks about, but it can be really serious and devastating on a business owner. It's not automatic on somebody's policy. You have to add it. And it stands for Employment Practices Liability Insurance. So it covers against sexual harassment, wrongful termination, discrimination. This is an employer to employee coverage. So in our state, it's an at-will state. So I can hire you and fire you for whatever reason. However, if you discriminate against somebody, there's laws to protect the employee against that. Or you harass somebody, there's laws to protect people from that. We all have seen harassment cases against the richest of people, and things come out later, and that's coverage that protects the employer, whether it's accurate, false, true. If the employer is accused, who's going to pay the bills to represent the employer without me having to go into my bank account and may not have $20,000 to defend myself against even a frivolous accusation. So know that when you have this coverage, it pays for your legal defense up to the policy limit against things like that. This coverage is very, very common and necessary when you have like a restaurant. Restaurant owners have a higher risk of being accused of this, because guess what? It also covers against, maybe in that restaurant scenario, the chef is harassing a server, or a chef to a cook, or whatever the situation is, employee to employee. If they harass each other, even if it's not the employer that harassed them, but it happened on site, the employer can be held liable for what somebody else did, because they're supposed to have things in place to protect the employees. We want to create a safe work environment. And part of a safe work environment is to make sure you have conversations about zero tolerance of harassment, discrimination. We don't tolerate that. So you have, as an employer, you have a responsibility to your employees to protect them. And if you don't protect them, you can be held accountable for the expense of that lawsuit. So it can be expensive to have it, but it's almost an invaluable coverage not to have it, because of anytime I think about, do I need this coverage? I think, gosh, I'm responsible for what other people say and do in my place of at work. How do I know what somebody's going to say and do? I know I'm not going to do that, but how do I know that somebody's not going to try to hurt somebody else, whether it's a personal assault, a physical assault, things like that, it's just almost it's too scary to worry to not have it. It's too scary for me to not have it. So what if you terminate somebody and they accuse you of wrongful termination? That could be a Department of Labor concern, and that could be a lawsuit against you. So 40% of EPLI claims are on small businesses. That's what the report. I think the last report I saw was the average settlement was like $300,000 by the time the lawsuit was said and done. It's an expensive situation to be brought in against sexual harassment and other types of protection against EPLI. So commercial umbrella, moving on, and let me see if there's a question here. Can you tell me what kind of insurance a general contractor needs? Okay, we're gonna hold that question because that will be a great question for when we summarize it, and we'll go through that. But a commercial umbrella policy protects you. It's another layer of protection above your general liability, above your auto coverage, above workers' compensation, above professional liability if it's written in the contract that way. So it's like, think of it like your personal umbrella, where it's just this extra layer of coverage in case something very, very serious happened and your underlying policies are exhausted, meaning you used it all. So now you don't have enough insurance still after the insurance company paid what their policy limit is. Now there's still more additional lawsuit against you. So if you can buy it in $1 million increments, and it covers, again, above your underlying limits. $1 million increments. A typical lease will have $1 to $2 million umbrella requirement on there. And so again, it just gives you that extra layer of protection. Better to come from the insurance company to pay the bill than from your profits. Surety bonds, common with contractors. Surety bonds, when you buy a surety bond or when you need a surety bond, that covers the performance of the work that the contractor did. So when you need a bond, and let's say you take a 50% down payment, you're redoing your sidewalks and it's $10,000. The contractor will likely write up your contract and then require 50% upfront because they have to buy the material. So, okay, I give you the 50% down, I give you $5,000, and then the contractor doesn't come back to work. He skips town. So there's going through what we just learned about other insurance. It's not general liability. Nobody got hurt. It wasn't crime. He wasn't my employee, because you might think it was theft, but it wasn't an employee. It's a contractor. So where would the homeowner or that person that needs the bond go after to recover that money? They would call the bond. So they call the bond and they go after the bond company, makes you whole again. So it again covers all these gaps of when would I need this kind of insurance. The bond is typically for an exchange, like roofing contractors need the bonds. All artisan contractors would need a bond if they're performing work. And it's a very inexpensive cost in the bigger picture. Most bonds are $100 to utilize it, to get it. Loss control. So loss control is not a coverage. It's a benefit that an insurance company gives to the business owner to help educate you, to help keep you safe in your business. They're hired and paid typically by the insurance company. I get a lot of complaints about loss control coming in and they think they're snooping around, but really think of it as a partner and that's your eyes and ears, and they're intended to help you reduce the risk in your business. So they work with you to help you make a handbook, to write things down about a safe work environment. They help you with workers' compensation. They'll host videos for you about slip and falls. They offer continuing education. There's just so much benefit to having a loss control survey done, especially if you're new and unsure. They just can catch things that we're in business. Maybe we're a chef and we're in business to open a restaurant, but I didn't go to school for safety in this type of environment. There's only so much that you can do as you're in your expert field, that you do need other people outside of your circle to help make you successful. Loss control is one of those tabs that we're there to help you. Your CPA, you need a great CPA when you're opening a business. An insurance advisor, you need a great insurance advisor to help make sure that you don't lose profits because you don't have the right coverage. An attorney, you need a great attorney to make sure that you don't get into a contract that hasn't been checked and double checked, and make sure that you are protected. So when I opened my business, I built around those key people because I needed to make sure that my success wasn't over a mistake. I wasn't going to lose something because of a mistake I made, because we all could read a contract, but can we read the contract like an attorney? Probably not. You could read it, but it doesn't, I don't know if I'm making a mistake or not. So make sure when you're thinking of business, you're also thinking about extensions of people in your operation that aren't necessarily your employees, but they're people that you have to trust. And I consider myself an extension of somebody's business when I'm the one that gets the call if something happens. So I just want to make sure that, from my experiences in my 25 years, that you don't leave out that CPA. Spend the money on a great accountant, a great attorney, because they can really save a lot of money from a mistake that could happen. Liquor license. So obviously you need liquor insurance, or dram shop, it's called dram shop insurance. You'll need that if you're opening a restaurant or you're opening a bar. Clearly that's obvious. You can't get a license without liquor insurance. The state requires it. State of Illinois requires it. You have to send them a certificate every year to make sure you maintain and you're in compliance. The city will require it. So if you're selling liquor, you need liquor insurance. But what happens if you're I'm an insurance agent and I'm hosting a party and I'm going to have liquor at this party? Your policy, if it's a good policy written, might have host liquor liability, which means that I don't run a business to sell liquor, but I might have a party and somebody might get in a car accident after they leave my party because I serve them, but it's not my business, and I'm sued. My host liquor liability would protect me. So I don't need special insurance. If you have that coverage on the policy, then that gives you that coverage for that. You hosted an event, you served at an event, and then somebody sues you because they were overserved and they got in a car accident. So think of all these examples of, gosh, it's a lot of responsibility when you own a business and you have these things going on and people don't think about that they need it. So whenever you're doing something in your business, make sure you consult with your insurance advisor to make sure you have these coverages in place. And to protect you, the places that you have these events will need the insurance anyway. So that's the backup, but know that in your mind that it's your responsibility to make sure that you have that, even if you're hosting the event at your own facility. So somebody's not going to ask you for insurance. You're hosting your own event. Make sure your policy says that you have the right coverage if you're going to be serving liquor. So host liquor liability. Okay, so human resources. Remember the other hat that you're going to have to wear. If you're leaving a W-2 job and you're coming over to the entrepreneur world, there are no benefits. You have to make the benefits. There is no health insurance provided. There is no disability insurance provided. My long-term care is not covered anymore. So if you had that before and you're going to let that go, know that you can build your own little individual program. Even if it's a small business, you can have all of these benefits in your own policy. You just have to create it. We have to build it. So, and if you do have a small company, maybe you only have 5 or 6 employees, these benefits are important to attracting new talent. they may or may not take your job because you may or may not offer benefits. So it's not as expensive as you think, but, and at least from what I've learned, employees they feel better when they know that they have benefits. My retention went up with my employees when I offered benefits. When I offered the key life insurance for my employees, my retention went up. So these are really important to people that you hire, and they should also be important to yourself, because if something happens to you in your business and you can't run your business, who is going to pay that bill? That's under disability. So your disability is pertinent into your operation. So even though it's not required by a lease, you may not have thought that it's important to have. But all of these key things are important when you're opening up your own business, because nobody's going to protect you besides yourself. And not everybody can offer these benefits, by the way. You have to have licenses to sell health insurance. And so not every commercial person sells health insurance. Not everybody has that criteria. So there are places that we can help you, direct you, and support you. Okay, so now I'm going to open up to questions. Here's my information. I know that BACP has my information on the YouTube and whatnot, but I want to open it up now to, we've got a little bit more time to just maybe your specifics. So I'm going to take the question that was written on here. What kind of insurance does a general contractor need? So general contractor always will need your general liability. So general contractor needs your general liability. You want to make sure that all of your subs have the same coverages that you have. So general contractor needs general liability. They need workers' compensation. Even if they have no employees, a general contractor needs what they call a ghost workers' comp policy, meaning they buy it, they have no employees, so we list 0 for employees. The GC, the owner of that general contractor company, is excluded. It's considered an exemption under the law, so you don't have to cover yourself. And then the premium is like $1,600 a year, but that protects you as the GC in case that contractor that you hired did not have insurance when you hired him, and then he gets hurt. Then the workers' comp gets protected under that coverage that I just mentioned, under the ghost work comp policy. So you need your general, you need your hired and non-owned auto, which would be under the general. You need, you may need some bonds if you're going to work on, if Village is asking for it, you'll need that ghost work comp policy. And then when you hire those subs, you're going to need you're going to need a copy of their policy, so certificate of insurance, naming you as the additional insured. So remember, then they have to have the same coverage as you have. They need general liability, they need workers' comp, they need to have the hired and non-owned auto. So you always want your subs to have at least the same insurance as the general contractor. So that way, if the electrician creates a house fire while he was working on the homeowner's house, everybody gets sued. The electrician gets sued, the GC gets sued, anybody involved will get sued. And then we remove ourselves from the lawsuit because you're already an additional insured here. So then you're protected under the electrician's policy. So that's kind of the general. Anything deeper than that, I would say offline conversation, because that gives you the general information. Okay, so I've got some more questions coming in.
A few more came in.
Okay.
Can you elaborate on the additional insured under general liability?
Yes. So the additional insured, when you are listed on somebody's policy as an additional insured, that gives you the same benefits for the liability as the person that bought that policy. So if I'm the GC, the general contractor, and my electrician named me as an additional insured, and they have $1 million of coverage, then me as the GC has the same $1 million protection. So if I'm named in that lawsuit because I did the deal with the homeowner, then I'm protected under ABC electrician, right? So I'm protected that same way. If for some reason that policy is exhausted, we go after the umbrella. If the umbrella gets exhausted, the GC still has coverage. So you have coverage all over, but why should your insurance pay a claim from the electrician's errors? So we want to be last in line. We want our GC policy to be last to pay. We're going to go after the electrician's policy first. So that's how that additional insured protects the person that's being named the additional insured.
Great. There's another one. I have a staffing agency. I had a hard time getting workers' compensation insurance because I couldn't tell them how many W-2 employees I would have.
So we just did, so staffing businesses are hard because if you're hiring a W-2, so let me back up because we've done a few already of these staffing agencies. Some staffing agencies hire out of state. So if you hire out of state, you got to make sure that your work comp carries you in those states. And not every state works the same way. So you got to make sure you have an agent in the states that you're operating in. But let's just say you're sticking in Illinois and you hired a staffing agency and you're in year one. Year one of a workers' comp policy is a guess. It's a best guess. If you're opening a business, you should have some idea of payroll. That's payroll in rent, kind of like you should have some idea. You might be off 20%, you might be over, under, but some idea. Is it $50,000? Is it one employee? Is it two? Do I project 5? You project what you think, right? But then at the end of the year, the workers' comp has what's called an audit. So every year your workers' comp, even if you have a ghost policy, no employees, we're going to verify. So it's trust but verify how much actual payroll you did have. Did you have subs? Did they have insurance? We check all those boxes. So the auditor comes out, does your books, and they actually, if we build out 50,000 of staffing and you really had 60,000, then they'll send you an audit bill. And on the reverse side, if we build out 50,000, but you only had 40,000 of W-2 payroll, then we're going to send you a refund. So it's your best guess. So it should not have stopped you from getting workers' comp as a staffing agency. The problem that at least that I've had in getting staffing workers' comp is the out-of-state rules, because not every carrier extends out of state. And then that agent needs to be insured. The agent needs to be licensed in all those states. So that's more of the hiccup than guessing how much workers' comp should be, because we should be able to take somewhat of an educated guess. And even if 6 months down the road, as you started that new business, that drastically changed, you can call your insurance agent, make an endorsement. You know what? I was budgeting 50,000. I'm already at 100,000 and we're 6 months in. Bump up the payroll so that way my audit, when it comes in, I don't owe $10,000 and they want the money in 5 days. I don't want to create that kind of negative impact on my business. So you can change it throughout the year. I hope that helps.
Great, thanks. Next question. I will have a cottage law bakery. Customers are picking up from in front of my apartment. How would this affect my insurance policy if they are not saying eating on premise?
Okay, so if they're taking, so it's like a carry out, if it's a carry out, did you still make the product? And that answer is yes. So we get claims all the time from fast food places that something was in their food, or something was spoiled, or something happened and they got sick. So your general liability as that takeout, they're not just sitting down in your business, you still need that general liability, because under that general liability is that product liability. So if they get sick, or the mayonnaise was old, or whatever they claim, they get sick, you need that coverage, even though they weren't on your property eating the food on site. Whether or not we pay the claim is a different story. I had somebody that claimed the bacon was too crunchy and they broke their tooth, and we just didn't buy it. So it was kind of a silly lawsuit, but we did get sued. The insurance company got sued. We defended it. We paid for the defense and we denied the claim. So having insurance just means you've got that attorney in your back pocket, and you let us do that work of protecting you and making sure that we pay negligent claims. We don't pay frivolous claims. We pay negligent claims.
Great, thank you. Next question. With general liability, should individual insurance be added, and is auto mandatory? What if you have a 1099 employees?
Okay, should individual insurance be added? So I'm not sure what that means on the auto, if you can elaborate. So if you have an individual auto policy, you're not going to be able to put it on a commercial certificate of insurance. So if somebody's asking for $1 million of auto liability, they're looking for a commercial auto policy typically, because they're going to want to be an additional insured on that policy. And if you have a 1099 employee, you're going to want to make sure they have at least the same amount of insurance you do. So if you have a sub that hired a non-owned auto, will protect you if that sub was going to, hurt somebody in a car accident, or they got in some kind of car accident going to pick up material. And now for, the attorney trails back to you that you did the work for, that you hired this guy to do the work, that if you're an additional insured on their subs policy, then you're protected. And if for some reason you hired them and they didn't have the right coverage and you have hired a non-owned, and you're protected then. So I'm going to read that question again. With general liability, should individual insurance be added? So I'm thinking meaning auto, and auto being mandatory. Most contracts do name commercial auto to be listed. It just does, because even if I hire an interior designer, she's still got to get from point A to point B. So there still could be a lawsuit in that area, that gray area. So auto insurance is not only that, I don't think it's mandatory, because it's a coverage that is between the contracts. So if the contract says it, then you need it, but it's not mandatory to have to do your job. It's just something that you could get stuck holding a big bill or being sued if you don't have it.
Another question, can you touch on examples of insurance for property management businesses?
Yes. So property management needs professional liability. So you need your professional liability. You'll always need your general liability. You'll need your hired and non-owned auto, because all your PMs are going to be going from, going to visit all the associations and complexes that they work under. So you'll need your hired and non-owned auto. You'll need your workers' comp. If they're W-2'd employees, that crime policy would cover. EPLI, almost everything that we talked about, a property manager would be a candidate for, because you have W-2 employees, you may have contractors doing work. Property managers hire out subs and to do work for associations that they manage. So they got to make sure that they're listed as the additional insured. Everyone needs protection. Plus you'll need that professional liability. And sometimes you'll need, professional liability. I would say professional liability over, I was going to talk about something else, but the professional liability will make sure that if you enter into a contract and you're sued now because of something that contractor did, then the property manager would have coverage against an error or something that they did during that operation of being a professional. They were offering professional services. That's what a property manager does.
Great, thanks. Truck repair shops are very hard to insure. My representative changed some information. I have evidence. It cost me over $10,000. Should have used a lawyer to read the policy. So I guess maybe just some advice on truck repair shops.
So truck repair shops are hard to insure. And the reason why they're hard to insure is, like, for example, farmers, we don't write everything. So what we can't write, we have, our wheelhouse, we have what we can write, but then what we can't write, harder to place business, we have a brokerage company. So now I go through 50 carriers to try to find you the best market. And 45 of the carriers say no on trucking. So now I'm left with 5 carriers, and then now they hold the market, like they hold it hostage so they could charge higher premiums. And it's very hard to insure because it's a specialized type of product. And there's not a lot of truck repair facilities. There's a lot, but not a lot compared to restaurants and your everyday flower shops and things like that. So yes, you have to read the contract. What I do know about truckers' liability is there's a couple different facets to that. You're responsible for the trucks that are left on site. So that's called the garage liability. So garage liability means that if there's a fire on my lot, while I've got 3 trucks I'm working on, those trucks might be $50,000 each. So I gotta make sure I have enough insurance to cover the fire of those trucks, because if they were in my care, custody, and control, they're my responsibility. So you gotta make sure you have the right garage liability, number 1. Number 2, it goes by the rating factor. How they rate your type of policy is they rate it by payroll and they rate it by sales. So if your payroll, you told them your payroll was 50,000, then they did the audit on the liability side, not the workers' comp side. They did the liability side audit, and your payroll was 200,000. That rating factor just went up 50%. $10,000 audit comes to you now. So reading those contracts at least every year, right? You're going to read them with the you probably don't need a lawyer on every, I don't want you to spend, not because I want you to spend money having a lawyer read everything, but your agent should be explaining these things too. But ultimately you sign the application. That means that whether you read it or didn't read it or talked about it or didn't talk about it, you are agreeing to those terms, and that the audit says that we're going to make sure that we're on top of, we're making sure that we're collecting the right premium for the risk that you have. And so likely what happened with you is your audit happened and the payroll and the sales were, they shorted the number, and then they audited you for a large amount because it's expensive to carry. We have a trucking market. So if you want to, check in with me, I can tell you what carriers that we use and see if we can help out in a different way. I hope that helped.
Great, thanks. With auto insurance, is there anything that can be deducted tax-wise?
So yes, so if you have a business auto policy, yes, you can. So then it would be considered, if you ask the rule of thumb, is it considered ordinary and customary for my business? And the answer, if you can answer it yes, then your business auto policy is tax deductible. If you have a personal auto policy, again, I'm not a tax accountant, but if you have a personal auto policy, but you use it for business, did you rate it business use on your, how is the rating factor? That could be a gray area. And as an accountant, I would tell you to ask your accountant, because you're not coding it as a business policy. So now you got to prove that you used it for work, and you got to do all these things, and that's getting into tax law. So I would again defer that to an accountant. But I do know that if you have a business auto policy, it's rated commercially, it is considered a tax deduction like your general liability, because it's used as an ordinary expense in your business. So maybe your commercial auto policy is 50% higher than a personal auto policy, but now I can take a 30% tax deduction on my business, my taxes for the same, a little bit more. I'm getting the better coverage and I'm getting covered the right way. Don't skimp out on coverage, because they'll deny you so fast on an auto accident, fatalities, that they want auto, they don't want to pay, they like to collect the money, but the insurance companies don't like to pay. So if they can get out of something, they're going to refer to the contract and make sure that they're going to pay what's rightfully what they're responsible for, but not more. So cover yourselves and get the right policy.
Great, thank you. Next question. Who do I need on my team with the purchase of a home, business, etc., in terms of accountant, attorney, insurance agent, etc.?
Yes. So even the smallest of businesses, home-based business, you need legal advice. A home-based business, you have to make sure on your homeowner's policy, do I have the right coverage that I'm running a business out of? You got to talk to that insurance person. Do I need business insurance? What kind of business do I need? How much coverage do I need? So you need that. I've used this theory has worked, and I've kept the same accountant and the same attorneys for 25 years because I found great people that worked with me. My business, as big as it is today, didn't start out large. It started out in my house while working from home. And then I opened up one little office with 500 square feet. And then I had one employee, and now I have 10 employees in 3 offices. Each of those times that I had a life-changing event with my business, my partners in my business were involved. Even though I don't have any partners in my corporation, my partners are my attorney, are my accountant. They are my, obviously, insurance. Hello, it's me, but I have a very good relationship with me. So we work together, and we have conversations all the time. And I work with I don't claim to be an expert in legal paperwork, so I refer to the experts in that. I'd rather budget and spend money on not failing than not wanting to spend $500 for my attorney to read a contract for me. Doesn't make it. No one wants to spend money, including myself, but I've seen too many mistakes happen where people get burned. A couple $1,000 here, $2,000 here. We could have just paid for the service, for the advice, and then I got it done the right way. So if you're a home-based business, start with your homeowner's insurance policy and make sure you have coverage that protects you. Are you seeing people in your home? Are you selling products? Are you just consulting? Then you need different coverage for consulting. Are you doing IT work? Whatever it is that you're working out of your house, you got to make sure that starts with the insurance that covers your home.
Great, thank you. Next question. When a person files a claim, are they typically dropped, or does their insurance premium increase?
So That's a loaded question because this year has been rough for insurance companies making profit. What I'd like to say is we don't drop people after one claim, but have I seen people be dropped after one claim? Yes. Do your rates go up after a claim? Typically, yes. Should they go up if you had a fire? Maybe not, maybe not, but I would say budget is a yes. We are in business to pay claims, but if you're not profitable as a company, as a business owner, we're not going to keep you on the books. So think of it as that. Could you file a claim every time something happens? Somebody stole $50 out of the cash drawer. Okay, maybe you could file a claim, but is that worth it? So you got to think about using your insurance for catastrophic things. So that way it helps you to budget accordingly, that you don't want it to be overused where you're being threatened to be dropped. Especially if you are new in business, I will tell you, you are looked at with harder glasses, like the vision. We're scared of you because you're a new business. You have a lot of risk because you don't know how to run a business. Supposedly you're new, so you're going to make mistakes. So people are going to have a higher risk of having a claim in the first 5 years than a 20-year business. It's just experience. It's like a young driver. Their likelihood to have a claim in the first couple of years of driving a 16-year-old versus a 40-year-old who's had 20 years of experience. So it's the same way. Insurance in general is supposed to go down over time if you're a business owner that has experience. So if you're new in business in year 3, 4, 5, maybe you started out with a higher rate because there were no markets for you. And now you've got a good, clean driving record, a good, clean history, no claims, 5 years in business, you should be able to get a discounted rate. Should be. We're in a very high inflation period right now. So even my experienced businesses are getting rate increases, not because of their experience or claims, but because of inflation. So you're always going to fight inflation being an ordinary, expense factor when insurance companies build the renewals, but your history should help you in the future. So the more claims you file, the more likelihood a carrier is not going to want to work with you, and the more likelihood you could get dropped when they call it frequency. If you have frequency in your business, then maybe the law of large numbers says if you have 2 or 3 claims, maybe the big one's coming next. Maybe we paid out 2 little $1,000 claims, and now you've got a big claim coming because that law of statistics says you're likely to have another claim. They may want to drop you because of that. So then having conversations, we can't tell you as an insurance agent, you can't file that claim because you can't say that, but we can give you some advice. Here's what could happen. How do you think it's worth filing this claim? What was lost? What can we recover them without filing that claim? That's the conversation. That's why I call it a partnership, because we should be able to have that communication without just going right to filing a claim and then you're getting hurt down the road because you didn't know the outcome of that.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? If you could please put them in the chat. We'll give everyone another minute or so.
This was really good. You guys asked some really good questions.
Yeah, they were really good questions.
Yeah, very good. Very, a lot of information that was provided today, and it was really touched on super, super high, high profile here, but high level. But I would tell you that insurance can save you big time. So another thing I tell my clients, me as a consumer, there are two departments that I really don't skimp on. One is my medical attention. So I go to the best doctors. I pay for the best healthcare because it's my health. And the second one is insurance. I never skimp on my insurance because I know it can financially protect me. So one is my health and 2 is my finances. And I want to make sure that those 2 are always the best. I'll skimp on cable, I'll skimp on other things, but I don't want to skimp on my health, and I don't want to skimp on, my business and my finances. So I hope that helped you with that.
Makes sense.
Anybody else?
This may not be so much of an insurance question, but how does credit score factor into the illustration as a new business / new driver?
We can run backgrounds on MVRs, so their motor vehicle reports. If you're having people driving, you should be running their driving records to make sure that they don't have DUIs and they don't have multiple. If they have accidents, they would show up on an MVR. But as far as them, claiming back injuries on that's hard to, we don't have access to past employers' information. I would probably defer that question to an attorney that would maybe on your hiring application, maybe it's legal to ask. I don't know if that's, if that's violating any laws of asking personal questions, but maybe that would be a question that you could ask if it's legal. Have you been injured, outside of work, or have you, I don't know. It doesn't sound, who knows with what's legal now, you got to double check that, but not an insurance for injuries related to workers' comp.
Right. Is there a way to check an employee's background who's always getting injured?
No, that kind of goes with the same. I don't know if legally you can ask somebody that in an interview. I don't know that. So talk to your attorney about what you can ask. I know, you can't ask them their age, you can't ask them things like that. So I don't know if that's something that would cross a labor law, but definitely talk to an attorney about that.
Okay. Next question. Does a business continuity policy help for pandemic risk, active shooter, or any other loss of income?
So we didn't pay out a dime during the pandemic for business interruption. So if you had a business and owned a business and were shut down during the pandemic, there's an exclusion of like microorganisms of that we excluded. So nobody got business interruption for the pandemic. Unfortunately, it's a standard coverage that was excluded. There have since been lawsuits that were filed against class actions, and then money came from the government to help bail out the restaurant owners and the foundations. They all got money for it because the government knew that all insurance companies excluded that coverage. So that left the business owners with a very heavy responsibility to either shut down, stay open, pay employees, whatever. So no, it didn't cover during the pandemic. An active shooter, there could be coverage for that if you have the policy. Obviously, that's something that's beyond your control. There are some exclusions for acts of terrorism. You might have an exclusion on it. You might have coverage on it. So did the active shooter, was it based on terrorist attack? Was it, a random? Was it a prior, that they happen, prior employees come in, shoot? Unfortunately, that happens. Your workers were injured. That's all workers' compensation. That's covered. So the situation is, obviously it depends. It's one thing about insurance also, it's not black and white, even though you have a page of exclusions, multiple pages of coverages and exclusions. It's really at the interpretation of the law. So when the lawsuit happens, it's in the interpretation on how they read the contract to determine who's responsible and who's not. So the judge and the jury are going to interpret the wording of the law. And that's why every year when you get your insurance policy, auto, home, whatever you're getting, there's always revisions. There's always updates and 2.0, 3.0. It's because they're buttoning up language after a lawsuit happens. Oh, that one wasn't quite worded properly. So then they revise what they mean about what's a covered person, who's excluded, who's not, and they create a revision. And that's how the new policies today are written so tightly to stop claims from the claims that weren't intended to be paid from being paid. So that way we can get to a place where insurance is affordable, because we're not supposed to pay for everything that happens to somebody, because we didn't charge for the risk for that to cover everything. We have exclusions, but if the exclusion wasn't written properly and then the judgment was awarded, now the insurance company has to go back and refine their contract. So you want to read your contract, obviously. I've had people read their contracts with a lot of questions afterwards, and it's important to read it and read the exclusions and then ask the questions, highlight what you don't understand, and then ask the questions to have it explained. And maybe you need to buy coverage that buys back that exclusion, so that way you have what's important to you in your business.
Great, thank you. I'm getting interesting. Elaborate on what exclusions were utilized during the pandemic.
It was called microorganism. I almost said microorganism, but microorganism. But that exclusion was standard, and we have a lot of insurance companies, not just farmers. So not a one of them, not any restaurant received coverage for business interruption. And here's why. That coverage, that they got shut down and there wasn't a claim. It wasn't a direct physical loss. So the wording that the insurance companies look for was your loss direct to you and physical on the location? In order for general liability to trigger and business interruption to trigger, it has to be direct physical. The pandemic was an indirect cause. So indirectly, you were shut down because the city shut you down. It was indirectly, it didn't happen to you physically direct. So, and even if like an employee got sick during the pandemic, that was questionable that we paid for the employee's injuries. If they were an essential employee and they got sick and they were in the hospital, that could have been a work comp if it would happen at the job. But as far as the general liability and business income, that this question is specifically about loss of income, it didn't pay because it wasn't a direct physical loss, number one, and number two, it was excluded. There's a clear exclusion on microorganisms, which is
Great,
what the
thank
virus
you.
was.
Getting lots of thank yous, great information. Happy 25th anniversary, lots of those.
Yes, thank you. So I do want to add, because I've been doing this a lot. The information that we give and the reaching out, we don't call anybody. We're just a really busy operation, but I am happy to answer questions. The best way to reach me is through email, because then I can respond with an appointment. We do get flooded with a lot of people wanting appointments, so just be patient. You can also call one of the numbers in the office. My assistant's name is Joanna. She can also book an appointment with you if you want, or come in one of the office in person. It just gets to be a very busy time, but I do want to be able to help you answer questions if you have more specific, or just want an offline conversation about a situation that may have happened to you. Email is the best way for me to communicate with you, so that way I can schedule a time and pay attention to the situation that you have.
Well, thank you again. I'm getting your expertise are apparent. Great presentation. Happy 25th. So I want to thank our wonderful speaker, always willing to donate her time and help entrepreneurs. I want to wish everyone a safe and happy weekend, and happy Friday, everyone.
Happy Friday. Enjoy the beautiful weekend ahead.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.